All right, guys, welcome back. Mac Rollins here, Zen Cop. It has been a couple of weeks since I've done a podcast or a blog. Combination of just being busy and also a vacation, which was amazing and great. Got to go to the coast and hang out with some friends and just relax, which was nice. Um, so I want to talk about an ongoing issue. It's been an ongoing issue, and every time that I try to think about something to write about or to talk about, the bottom line that just sort of keeps uh, sort of forcing itself into my writing or speaking or essentially anything I try to talk about in various platforms is the issue of where are we going and how long before. And when I say we, I mean public service as a whole, but specifically law enforcement because that's the one that I can relate to. A lot of people have told me, "Oh, you should make your audience a little more vast and wide." And it's not that I don't want to. It's just that I can't speak on behalf of, fill in the blank in terms of public service. I don't know what it's like to be a firefighter, EMT, paramedic, nurse. I don't know those things. So I'm not going to try and comment on things that I'm not familiar with. This is familiar to me. It's familiar to me in many ways, and in many ways I can relate to, XYZ. If I was to try to comment on things that I was unfamiliar with, I think that would be a discredit to the profession that I was talking about. And also, I just don't do that. Um, but the bottom line, and I'm not trying to say that, I don't want to get into the argument of, who does more. But if we were to really compare, first responders to all of them, cops are the first responders. They're the first ones to 90% of scenes that are going to require additional resources, that being fire, EMS, what have you. So in every realm of the the different categories we could jump into, my expertise and my ability to comment on those things is based on what I do for a living, and I'm a cop, so I'm going to stick with that. But retention overall, if we were to make the comparison again to other career fields, you don't see those leaving in droves because of public perception, right? COVID impacted hospitals and impacted nurses, doctors, all of those combined, right? But that was because of a issue of mask mandates, vaccines, and other arguments on the table. I don't remember the last time that a firehouse was burned down. That would be kind of sad if that happened. No pun intended. Actually, pun intended. Sorry. But I don't remember people rioting over the last time that a paramedic accidentally killed someone. And it's happened before, probably a lot more than people don't know, but more than people think. But again, kind of going back to that plumber theory that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. But where do we draw the line, and how low do we set the bar in terms of employee retention and new hires? And we are losing people left and right, and we are losing good people. And when I say we, I don't mean my agency, even though it's happening at my agency. It's happening everywhere. We are losing people, good cops who are going, you know what? I think I'm going to go do something else. And their reasons, they vary pretty widely in terms of decision making and why they choose to leave. But the bottom line, even if they work for a good agency, it's not necessarily the agency. It's just the climate overall. And a lot of it has to do with just, is it really worth it? Am I really making a difference? And if most people knew most cops on a personal level, it's genuinely because they want to make a difference. That's why they stepped into this career field. That's why they took on this job, is because they wanted to serve their fellow man, woman, what have you, and they wanted to make a difference in their community. And that would be true for any cop. And the small group of, let's just call them Derek Chauvins, or pick a name of someone who has made a mistake and then in turn catastrophically altered the universe of law enforcement as we know it. Those are the individuals who are far and few between, yet they get the most attention. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole that I'm not going to go down, but I'll just sum it up in a sentence. The media loves tragedy. They love violence. They love death, mayhem, rape, chaos. They love all those things so much that they'll capitalize on those. Why? Because sex sells. And it's not literally sex, but you get the idea. Violence sells. All these horrible things sell. And I was thinking to myself, excuse me, the other day we were in the car, me and my son, and I was listening to a local news station, just news talk radio type stuff, and they were going over the highlights of the week. And I remember thinking to myself, God, I want to turn off the radio because it was so depressing, scary, violent, just not good stuff. It was all the horrible things that are happening in the world, not the good things. And I get it. Most of us, if we turn on the TV and we saw some good story, most of us would be like, all right, cool. That's great. What happened, to the rest of the world, right? We have all this chaos, and they capitalize on chaos. And don't get me wrong, there needs to be some degree of news reporting for catastrophic events and all that stuff. But for the most part, why do we only capitalize on when the cops kill somebody, right? We don't ever capitalize on when the cops do good. It happens, but it's very rare. But the reality is that most people are going to want to know what happened and why it happened very quickly. And they're always aiming their, moral compass towards the direction of something went wrong with law enforcement here. They screwed up. That's how it's spun every time. I mean, in the world of law enforcement, there's the term you hear, good shoot. Good shoot meaning that, lawfully justified and there were no errors, no mistakes, no nothing, all good. Good shoot. And a bad shoot where the cop makes a mistake and kills someone by accident or shoots when they shouldn't have, those are so rare. But the majority of people who watch what you would call a good shoot would look at it and go, my God, that was horrible. When in reality, it was perfectly lawful. And the use of forces that were utilized were not only good, they were great because they stopped the threat. No cops died and no one else from the public was injured or killed. But that goes out the window when you look at this sort of broad brush that the media uses for officer involved shootings or any type of even non-lethal force scenario lately, where you just watch a job well done and the peanut gallery rips it apart. That's been going on for a long time, but lately I feel like it's been so redundant, right? We just see the media and the general public sort of just swoop in on these what would be very, very, very lawful shoots. And I'll say lawful but awful because that's what most shooting circumstances are that involves lethal force. It's a decision that's made by the officer to end the threat. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be, like in the movies where the guy just gets shot or something and then they fall to the ground or they shoot him in the leg or the arm and, they survive. There's no, logic behind that. And it's so frustrating because I hear people actually say that, oh, shoot him in the leg. Yeah, shoot him in the femoral artery. That'll be great. But no one thinks about that because the average person doesn't know that that's probably the one place you should never get shot. But I said I wasn't going to go down a rabbit hole. I did. Crawling back out of that and going into the aspect of retention and the aspect of keeping good cops here, the cops who are seasoned, the cops who are, I don't know what the right word is, millennials and all that stuff. We need to make a category and title for cops, and so we can associate them. Because the age differences don't really reflect and they're not really accurate when you compare Gen Z, millennials, whatever. Those aren't the same in cop world. There's a different age group and bracket that we should probably start looking at. But I'll just call them the new guys. The new guys, and no offense if you're in this group, but if you got hired in law enforcement within the past 3 years, you are part of this new generation that is absolutely terrifying. And don't get me wrong, some of you guys and gals are going to do great things. You're going to be great cops, but there's a lot more of you that are going to do not bad things, but I'm already seeing it. We are already seeing it. There's a lack of training. And I shouldn't say it's not your fault, because there are other things at play that are beyond your control. The academies are starting to cut corners. They're trying to make things a little bit easier. They're lowering the bar. They're literally lowering things to climb over. They're trying to make it easier to get through the academy. And for the first time in a long time, one of the largest academies in Northern California, they didn't fill all their seats. That happened a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. And they said, wow, that's never happened before. And those words are so important, because I don't think that's a good road to go down when we start saying that's never happened before, which means that we're in a whole new realm of how to learn, educate, teach being the key word. I feel like so many academies and training programs are cut short. And if you look at a lot of the, I guess, mid to, older generation who were FTOs, who were all of these, educators, I would say most FTO programs for larger agencies that used to harbor a few hundred years of experience between that group now maybe possess 20 years, 30 tops between the entire FTO team. And for those of you who don't know what FTO is, it's Field Training Officer. They are the essentially your chaperone for a few months, 6 months, depending on how long you need to get you through your orientation phase of entering your journey into law enforcement. And those months are so critical, because each person ideally will teach you their way of doing the job, right? There's multiple ways to do this. Everyone has their thing they're good at, or their thing that they I'm an expert in this, or I'm a teacher, DTAC, range, whatever it is. They bring that new level of expertise to, sorry, that's my dog barking. If, that would normally, that would exist in a different environment. Now we're trying to rush through that environment, right? Because we're not familiar with it, or our new FTOs haven't done ABC. So they can talk about it, but they've never actually done it before. I'm not saying you have to do everything to talk about it or teach it, but my God, it's most of our FTOs, or FTOs in general. I'm talking about a variety of agencies, because before I do any type of speaking, I always talk to people. Hey, what do you see? What are your issues here? And the majority of the people I talk to, not just in California, but I have friends in other states that are cops, and they just say, man, one, it's so hard to keep good people, because the older guys are just going, you know what? I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And I don't want to do this anymore. The mid guys are sort of like, yeah, this is pretty horrible. I don't like where I am, but I'm going to feel it out. And then you have this new generation that's just sort of like, yeah, I was hired. What do I do? And then you have the newer generation teaching these kids. And a lot of those would-be good teachers are sort of still trying to figure out what kind of cop they're trying to become. And for me personally, I don't think you even figure that out until I would say at least, and I'm talking about consistent, right? A lot of us, when we're in our new year, sometimes we bounce around, but it really is a combination of learning your community, learning your players, learning your admin, learning your department before you really decide, hey, I want to become this, I want to do this, I want to do that. But I would say 5 years, maybe 7, before you really figure out, okay, this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, and this is the way I'm going to do it. And for those of you who scoff at that, no, I already know it's not meant to be offensive. I'm not saying you have to do it that way, that 5 or 7 years is not the magic number, but I would say that there's a large change up that you'll go through. I always reference high school. Think of your freshman year versus your senior year and how much you changed in just 4 years, right? And I know that was adolescence and it's different, but consider that your adolescence of becoming a cop, right? And your age at which you get into this career field, that plays a difference too. So can play a difference. But I guess at this point, the answer to fixing any of this comes down to the societal perception of us and what we are doing and how we are doing it. And right now it's not good. We need every bit of, good spotlight, good stories, just good things that make us still look like we're trying to do the right thing, even though I know most of us are. Again, it's perception, right? And perception is reality. Most people who are not either in this business or close to it, they're not going to have any idea. They just sort of watch the highlight reel, if you will, and then assume that's just the way it is. And that goes for anyone who's unfamiliar with a certain topic. But if I had, I guess, a point to all this, it would be that now more than ever, we are under a microscope. And admin, if you're listening to this, anybody who's in a position of power, whether you're a sergeant or a captain or police chief, sheriff, I would just say that there is so much to be said about, I'm not talking about catering to every need, right? We don't want that. If you catered to every need, no one would drive the ship. You just have to make sure that everyone is being taken care of in the right way so that they want to come back to work and do a good job. So that they want to, hey man, if you're thinking about leaving your agency, my place is the place to come. Come over here, apply. You want that positivity, and you want it even more so than you want it from the public. Sometimes we get so focused on trying to cater to the needs and demands of the public, and I understand that's important, but the internal workings, right? Nothing's going to work unless your guys and gals, all your people, even non-sworn, you have to consider the whole ball of wax in order to have an agency run smoothly, effectively, as best you can. Nothing's going to be perfect, but if you're not taking care of your people, you're not taking care of your agency. Now, the other part comes from the boots on the ground, the cops, this new generation that thinks that they are, owed something. Again, we sort of see that change with every generation. To my generation, we all know that the salty guys who, were just so angry. They looked at us like, oh yeah, okay, a bunch of crybabies. You want this, you want that. And it just changes. But how low do we go before we start making mistakes as educators or as departments or even academies, standards and training, where we start to say, man, we lowered the bar so low, now everyone just walks over it, right? It's not even a challenge anymore. That's where we start to enter the realm of what is going to be chaos down the road versus what could be a better future. And right now there's so much uncertainty that it really makes everyone nervous, which again, you start talking about nerves, you start talking about anxiety. People say, you know what? I'm just going to leave. It's easier if I went and did something else. And there's a lot of us out there that are thinking, man, is there anything else to do? And I don't know. It's scary to think about, but if you're a good cop, you know you're a good cop. And that's that. If you have to question it, you're probably not good, so get better. But if you're a good cop, you know it. And if you're a good cop, you know that you need to stick around. But do it for the right reasons. Do it because you still want to. Don't do it because you have to. Nobody has to do anything. So if that's a thought or even something that you're considering, have a real honest conversation with yourself, because the last thing that law enforcement needs is someone else out there talking about how horrible it is, and then you're going to end up either making a mistake or doing something that's going to compromise your safety, someone else's safety. And it's only a matter of time before we have that blip, right? That pendulum swing that sends us right back into the negative, and we don't need that. Guys, I appreciate it. I'm going to call it at about 20 minutes. Again, you can follow me on Instagram, the Zen Cop. I'm on Twitter, kind of. I don't really tweet. This will obviously be on YouTube, and I'm trying to get hooked up with Spotify and a few other platforms to get this stuff out there. Like, subscribe, please, and thank you. Share. Again, I don't make any money off this. This is my own thing, my own time, my own dime. I'm doing it to, help. Thanks again, guys.